The Cuttermans are a true example of a family that kills together, but really stays together. The film begins with cheerful sounds in a happy suburb, which soon turns dark. A woman screams for a man to stop, but his gloved hands roam over her body. Strapped to a stretcher, she just keeps pleading, and the man pulls out a surgical knife and brutally mutilates her breast. The scene changes, and we move to the city, where Sam enters Lewis's office to congratulate him. Apparently, the medical board has announced that they are honoring Lewis as the most prominent brain surgeon in the country. This means he will be awarded the prestigious Mayflower Award. At the police station, a detective named Ralph files a missing persons report for the same woman we saw mutilated at the beginning. It turns out that 6 people have gone missing in the past 3 months, and the police can't find a connection. At the hospital, a wealthy couple is grieving the loss of both of their only daughter Maria's kidneys, but despite the parents' numerous phone calls, they are unable to find a donor. Unfortunately, Maria only has 2 weeks to live. Then a burly man comes in and tells the couple he can help them. Soon after, Lewis's children, Scott and Nicole Cutterman, are overjoyed to receive an order for a kidney from Maria's parents for $125,000. They call Lewis to tell him and their mother Rachel about the order, and he awkwardly says, "A kidney is coming after dinner," and immediately leaves for home. Rachel tells the kids to check on their patients, and Nicole asks if she can practice her technique, since she's been helping her parents with all the creepy stuff going on in their basement. After he agrees, Nicole and Scott rush to another room in the house, where we see several people lying unconscious in hospital beds, many with limbs chopped off. The woman from the beginning is also lying there dead, and the siblings happily take out her brain and start practicing on it. Meanwhile, the detectives keep circling, trying to figure out where all these missing people are. Back to the Cutterman family, one patient, William, dares to call out that crazy family and has his tongue brutally cut out. Nicole threatens the rest of the patients with the same. Meanwhile, Ralph hints that the missing people might be together, and yes, that is exactly what comes out of that conversation. Later, Mindy, a real estate agent, rings the doorbell of the Cutterman's house. She and Scott begin to flirt shamelessly, and he invites her over for dinner at the house. There's some tension between Mindy and Nicole, as the real estate agent tells them that his boss has no idea where he's getting his clients. Rachel and Nicole are both overjoyed by this. Of course, Mindy has fallen for the family's trap. The nasty flirting continues, but soon Lewis arrives home. Dinner seems almost pleasant until Scott spikes Mindy's wine with drugs and insinuates that the meat she's eating is human. A drunken conversation ensues with Mindy, and we learn more about the family's real body part trade. Rachel is the head honcho, while Scott and Nicole run the back office for order. However, before she can ask more about it, Mindy faints and is taken downstairs with the other patients. While Mindy is being hooked up to all the machines, Rachel threatens poor William, pointing out that he killed his youngest child because he never understood the importance of not using foul language. We then meet Jack, the kidney donor, and as Maria's parents grieve, flesh-crushing sounds echo through our ears as Jack's kidney is removed from surgery. On the other side, the tension mounts as 2 detectives arrive and leave the hospital just before the donated kidney for Maria arrives. Soon, we see a doctor telling the other parents that their son is in desperate need of a new heart. The burly man sees this interaction and immediately tells Scott about the need for a heart, as well as that the police were here to question him about some missing persons. Soon after, a machine spins and Scott destroys the bones of all his dead patients, and the siblings discuss how rude it was to serve Mindy dessert. Also, Nicole is wearing Mindy's blouse, which is a cruel joke on the patient whose life has just been turned upside down. As Nicole walks to the grocery store, we see that someone is watching or following her. Suddenly, a man comes out of the darkness and tries to harass her. Her earring falls to the ground in the midst of the attack, but she doesn't notice. Nicole persuades the man for a while, happily doing the job, but then pulls out a knife. At the speed of light, she cuts off the man's genitals, right before she turns the knife to his neck. And if that wasn't disgusting enough, she starts chewing on a piece of his flesh, saying it would taste even better with mustard. At the station, Ralph gets the news of the man's murder, and that his genitals are missing. He, along with Detective Jules, quickly rushes to the scene, and Jules finds Nicole's expensive earring. Finally, they get a clue. On the other side, Mindy wakes up crying for help. The other patients tell her what's going on, and we see a similarity between them. They've all arrived at Cutterman's house trying to sell something to the family, and they're all alone, with no idea where they are. Mindy's boss doesn't bother to check where his employees are bringing clients from. One patient is a single mother, another's mother is in a nursing home, one's wife has passed away and his children rarely visit him. Eventually, they tell Mindy that the Cuttermen sell patients' body parts on the black market and, yes, that they eat human flesh. Upstairs, the family drool over their profits. While the family discusses their dinner plans after Rachel and Louis leave, Nicole and Scott take Mindy away to be punished, simply because she complained too much. Right after Nicole threatens poor William again, we see Mindy tied to a slab and struggling her way out. Scott injects her with morphine and pulls out a tiny chainsaw. We all know what's coming next. Mindy's right leg and arm are also chopped off. Of course, this is all for the roast and appetizers the family talked about earlier. After that, the family cleans and prepares the severed limbs just like you would any normal meal. Meanwhile, Jules tells Ralph that there is only one jeweler in town who has that specific design of earrings. Also, their captain wants them to start going door to door to see if anyone can identify these missing people. And finally, Ralph realizes that every single one of these people has unconventional jobs, i.e., they weren't just sitting in an office. They're out and about and making perfect prey for a serial killer. On the other hand, while the Cuttermen are celebrating with their much-loved family, the doorbell rings and they're the two detectives. However, they quickly leave, because why would Louis admit that he knows all the people they're looking for? Also, the family is going to be donating hearts tonight in exchange for $350,000, and this time the donor is poor William. Downstairs, he is given anesthesia before the operation and laid out on the operating table. The surgery is horrific, and the film holds nothing back. While all of this is going on, we see flashes of different events, Louis questioning Nicole about the whole procedure, the parents crying about their son's condition, the burly man delivering the organ, and Scott handling the business aspect of their work. We see it all. The next day, Scott is gardening when he unfortunately has to talk to his annoying neighbor. And yes, he also reveals that he puts bone powder in his garden to keep it green. Suspicious, the neighbor promises to keep this little detail a secret. Later, the two detectives arrive at the jeweler and ask about the earring. The scene ends as the saleswoman leaves to get the address of the purchase. Meanwhile, the patients are frustrated with William's condition and the fact that they have no way to survive. One of them, Jack, bravely says that he will not die without diminishing the family's wealth. We also see that they all have one leg and one arm amputated, just like Mindy. Jack soon wakes up and turns off William's life support cord. When the siblings come running, the entire blame falls on him. Unfortunately, he is introduced to the punishment chair, which means they will no longer give him any painkillers. Jack's leg is brutally amputated, and they don't even let him pass out from the pain. Then the drill comes out. It goes right into Jack's mouth, and he wakes up again. His eyes are about to follow it, when Jack stabs him in the head with a knife, killing him himself. But this doesn't stop the siblings, and in a particularly gruesome manner, they gouge out his eye and eat it, while the other patients scream at the horror they were forced to witness. This information soon reaches Louis, and he brushes it off as a business loss, since they lost two saleable, valuable items. Rachel again discusses what they'll have for dinner. Guess there won't be vegetables. Back home, the siblings bet $25,000 that William's liver will be better than Jack's, while both corpses hang from the ceiling. Late at night, the family gathers when the doorbell rings again, another salesman, this time for perfume. Nicole invites him in, and the family toasts to their new victim. And yes, his drink has been spiked as well. Back at the police, the two detectives have been sent to another case, since their current case hasn't made any progress. The entire town has been assigned to the mayor's niece's kidnapping, and missing persons are being sent to cold storage. Jules is rightfully upset. The next morning, Rachel tells Louis of her desire to move house, and he agrees to see if that would make her happier. Meanwhile, Jean is treated the same as the other patients. He abuses his siblings in his French accent, and is introduced to the other patients. The patients plead with the family to let them go, but as usual, their pleas fall on deaf ears. Louis coolly tells them, the patients are the ones at fault in this situation, because they decided to come to the Cutterman's house even though there is a sign outside that says, lawyers no entry. Late that night, a robber breaks into the Cutterman's house and finds the prisoners. Mindy is awake, and she asks the robber to help them. The argument continues when Nicole arrives with a knife. The two struggle for a moment, but the robber manages to escape. Luckily, the annoying neighbor, Mrs. Rogers, sees the robber escape and calls the police, namely Ralph. Unfortunately, Ralph does not send anyone to investigate, as Mrs. Rogers is known as the neighborhood's domineering woman. The next morning, the Cuttermans are busy discussing their cannibal dinner plans again, as Nicole's cousin is due to visit that night. No one is concerned about what happened to the robber the previous night except Nicole. That night, the doorbell rings, but it's not Kate, but Ralph. He shows Nicole the earring, a serious look on his face. Alas, things don't go as we thought. Nicole squeals with joy, happy to have her earring back, and it turns out Ralph is their cousin. He was careful not to draw attention to the family. He also takes the burglar's fingerprints from the house and decides it's not a concern, because if she comes up with information, it will land on Ralph's desk, and he will take care of it. The next morning, Jules watches suspiciously as Ralph tells Louise all of this information. Also, it's a happy thing that the missing persons cases are settled. Later, Louise and Rachel tell their kids that the family is moving. A montage of the whole thing is then shown. Scott will clean out the cutting room and freezer so that no trace is left. As for the current saleables, i.e. patients, they will be removed and the family will start anew. The film ends just as it did at the beginning, with a woman tied to a bed, begging for help. But this time, the mutilation is not being done by gloved hands, but by Ralph dressed in women's clothing. He becomes distraught at how delicious she must be and moves on.